My name's Lou Zabrowski to start with, and I worked at Studebaker's in 1950. In my senior year in high school, I worked the 3 to 11 shift, and my first job was working in the press room. They were pressing out front fenders, and they gave us white gloves to wear, and we would feel all over the fender, and if we felt an indentation, we'd put a circle around it, and if it had a pimple on it, well, we'd put an X on the pimple, and it'd go on down the line to the body finishers, and they would repair it and do what they had to do to it. And that was my first job there. Yeah, it's the Centennial model. This 52 is their Centennial model of this hardtop. I had been started out looking for a Golden Hawk, and I found out they were a little more money than I wanted to pay. And so I thought, well, I would like to have a hardtop, since they're rare, getting rarer. And so I put an ad in Studebaker magazine, the Turning Wheels magazine, and asked for a 52 hardtop or a 58 hardtop. And I didn't get any calls on the 58 hardtop, and I had 3 calls for this 52. They had a little building, this tin building out there, and he had several cars sitting out there, old Studebakers. He played around with them, and he opened the garage door, and he got this one started and backed it out, and I said, "Oh my, look at that, isn't that pretty?" And I said, "Well, if you got the title for it, I'm taking it home." Yeah, so I bought it, and I bought it back to its birthplace in South Bend, Indiana.
started at Studebaker International 4 years ago. Just kind of showed up during the move, kicked the door in, said I'm here and I'm not leaving. I guess after last May, the owner there, Ed, wanted a different tour guide because the other guy was getting burned out, so he asked me to do it. I guess he found out I was good at it, and I've been doing it ever since. All of the green bins and racks that you see here are the originals from Studebaker's own parts and service department over at Plant 8, which is catty corner to this building. Everything was brought over from the old engineering building, or SASCO, had to be disassembled, brought over, reassembled. Now these parts are from 1923. They were really starting to show their age. They're all bent and twisted from holding these parts so long. So what we had to do is put heavy metal weights in the middle of them, straighten them out with a forklift. The reason we had to do that is because Ed, the owner, is a neat freak. Took us 197 semi-loads to bring all of this stuff over here in the winter of 2009. It was one of the worst winters in Indiana history. Some of us who were there during the move are still having flashbacks. We try to get over that. We've got one guy who's been on the job since about the dawn of time. His name is George, and all he does here is he just pulls the parts, compares them to the blueprint, puts them away. He'll also pull parts when you order them, package them, and ship them. What you see here on these two skids is a small example of some of the tooling that we have on hand here at our disposal. This piece here at my feet is one of the smaller pieces that we have in our plant. And as big as it is, all this does is remanufacture rubber hood bumpers. It makes about 200 or so at a time. It's extremely heavy. Got to be really careful with these. 1964, AM General got this plant and they made deuce and a half trucks. Now we're going to take a look at one of them. This is an AM General M35A2 deuce and a half military truck. This is the standard truck of the U.S. Armed Forces for many years, beginning at the Korean War up until today. This particular one was built in this plant. The final assembly line was right where this sheetrock wall is here today. As each finished truck would come off the end of the line, they'd make a left-hand turn, go to the end of the test cell hall where they were lined up in fleets of 20. It's where the government inspectors would do their job. And this is an A2. It's powered by a Hercules diesel or multi-fuel engine, 5-speed manual transmission. Well, let me tell you, some days it's a lot of fun, other days it's work. But, you know, I enjoy it. I'm a diehard. All right, back here is another great example of how we utilize our airspace instead of our floor space. All of the sheet metal you see back here is NOS. It was in its original cardboard boxes from the time it left Plant 8 in 1972 up until the time it came over here from SASCO 4 years ago. Cardboard is not good for us back here. First of all, it takes up too much space to store the parts. It's a fire hazard, and we also really didn't know what we had. Say a customer would order a door like the ones we have down here, we could easily accidentally ship them a bad part and not even know about it until it was too late. So we broke down all the cardboard, and all of these parts have since been categorized and inventoried and are available in the current catalog. If you look at the pallet racks themselves, like this one down here at the end when you round the corner, you'll see it says PMCC, Packard Motor Car Company. These pallet racks came from Plant 8. Here, has anybody ever seen a 56 Golden Hawk with air conditioning that's not in the trunk? No? That's because they only made one. And the pulleys to run the pump and compressor are unavailable. They're only on that one car. But for some strange unknown reason, Studebaker made all of these condensers. They have essentially no purpose other than existing, and they will only fit a 56 Hawk with the Packard engine. But we know, one day the guy who owns that car, he's going to come back, and he's not leaving without one. On this wall here, we've got all of these NOS parts books and manuals. They were stored in the front offices at Sasco because that was the only place roof didn't leak. Now, for those of you restoring cars, you know how important these books are so you can get all your part numbers, get what you need. Here at the Parts and Service Division, we take it a step further. Follow me into this room here. Alright, this is our blueprint room. Anytime we have a question about a part, we can pull the engineering drawing by number. We have access to several thousand prints. They are all the originals that came over from Plant 8. They were on the docks and they'd use them for reference when shipping and receiving parts. The oldest print that we have here is this one, number 9160. It's just for a typical Timken wheel bearing. However, it is from 1913 and this is the original piece of paper. The drafting table itself is a Studebaker original, and to show how old it is, the draftsman who used it even signed it right here along the ledge, and it's dated 36 and 37. This guy here who left us his autograph must have had a lot of time on his hands that day, because what he did is he took the needle point from his compass and he made little dots until it spelled out his name. I bet his supervisor was just thrilled with him that day.
If he knew.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go out the door, take a right turn. If you look right here, we've got the most desirable part after our three heads. Zip van front windshields. Doesn't everybody want one? For a while, Newman and Altman, just trying to get rid of them, was selling them to the local power company, and they were using them for desktoppers in their offices. Back here, can anybody tell me what these large cables are for? I'll take a closer look if you want.
Emergency brake?
No.
Rear door cable?
Sir, were you on a tour before? Oh.
I work on doors like that all the time.
Yes, these are the rear tension cables for the doors on a zip van. We have a lifetime supply. Now, what it'll typically use these for is if they don't sell, he doesn't like to fire his bad employees, instead he'll just hang them. As a matter of fact, this whole back row is nothing but zip van parts. We've got enough parts back here to restore every zip van left in existence about 10 times over.
How many zip vans are left?
Oh, I don't know how many are in junkyards. Location. When I'm not giving tours here, I spend most of my time going up and down all the parts rows, box by box, number by number, doing the inventory. I use original sheets that are print-offs from the last time that Sasco did an inventory in the early 80s. I'll just check off here or not here, give a quantity of how many we think we have. If I run across a part number that is not on one of those lists, I've got close to 300 handwritten pages of parts and numbers, and all of those would be the ones that were previously thought to be unavailable at Sasco. So if there's a part you need, you don't see it in our catalog, give us a call. As a matter of fact, almost everything you see in front of that card is not in the current catalog, because when it was published, that was way up front there. Again, everything you see here is in numeric order. The closer to the front you get, the lower the number. The lower the number, the older the part. Some of our earliest pieces here go back to 1934. We're very fortunate here at Studebaker that Jeff Newman and Nate Altman saw a market for this stuff, stepped forward and saved it all from Plant 8 and 4 of the other parts depots from throughout the country. After them, it was Dennis and Denise Lambert who saved this for another 10 years at Sasco. Now we have Ed and Heidi Reynolds, who we predict will keep it available for at least another 150 years, because that's how long we predict that Ed is going to live.
All right, my name is Ed Reynolds, and the name of the business is Studebaker International. I grew up in a Studebaker family. My father was in the engineering department at Studebaker, and I always paid attention to what he was saying about what was going on at work. And in later years, he had always had a company car, which was usually one of the factory prototypes. And they would all frequently have a lot of innovative things on them that weren't in production, particularly after, maybe the year the 1960 was coming out. They wouldn't then, but a year or two later, they would keep them as engineering cars for the engineers to drive. And they would try different things. So there were a lot of interesting cars through the years. After I graduated from college and was working, I bought a Studebaker and bought another Studebaker. I had a 63 Avani. I couldn't get a rear view mirror for it. I didn't know anything about manufacturing, but it took a couple years, but I finally came out with got the mirrors made. And I always sort of enjoyed selling, didn't mind making a little money on the side and recoup some of my expense for the mirrors I made. And so I started offering them for sale. And that went well, and I started making some rubber parts and plastic parts and more mirrors, and pretty soon it became a pretty good part-time business. And I was teaching school at the time, and after a few years I took a leave of absence from teaching, hired a helper, and then business really increased because I was home to answer the phone. And soon after that I opened a store in Long Beach, California, and I was there for 13 years. And during that time I continued to make more parts, and the business flourished. And then 12 years ago I bought out another business, Packard Farm, which was in Greenfield, Indiana. And they didn't do as much business as I did, but they had a very strong inventory of original parts. And where my inventory was pretty well organized and fairly easy to move, theirs wasn't. So I decided to move the business from Long Beach, California to Greenfield, Indiana, which is near Indianapolis. And then 3 years ago, I purchased the inventory of Sasco in South Bend, which is really the main parts collection that Studebaker had. And so we had to move that to a separate location. So now I have a business in Greenfield and South Bend, which are about 150 US miles apart.
To a world Studebaker audience of the cars all around the world, what's your message for what you've got here, and how long can you keep those cars on the road?
We have lots of parts here. More parts than most people would even imagine, even those that have heard about it. Unless you see it firsthand, you just can't imagine how much we have here for Studebakers. Now that doesn't mean we have everything. There's lots of parts that have been picked over or just for some reason aren't available anymore, but there's still lots of others.
So welcome everybody to South Bend, Indiana for the 48th International Studebaker Drivers Club Convention.
Well, today we have a parade from the St. Joseph's Fairgrounds from the concourse, and what they're doing is they are parading them in they close Michigan Avenue down, and they're going to park all the cars. So they're parking them here, and we're going to have a big car show from the concourse. So it's going to be a great show today, and it's going to be a wonderful viewing of all Studebakers. We heard there's over 800 cars here. So we're
Hey!
We got, so far we're good, yeah.
Temperature's right up there though.
Is it?
Looking
What,
to
your
park
temperature or the car's?
the car, 220.
How's your temperature?
Mine's fine. I'd just like to get this thing in a spot to
Beautiful.
cool off.
You've done it.
Chatsworth, California, huh?
Right.
Madison, Wisconsin.
Yes. How's the air conditioning working?
Oh, yeah. Hope we get parked soon. I'm starting to overheat.
Is that you or the car?
Yeah, both. Both successfully, both.
It's a great ride. I've had it 12 years. Been better than any diamond I've ever had.
How long have you owned this beautiful car?
12 years. It's a collectible now. It's an 82.
And how about you?
I'm a whole lot older. Saturday, 62.
And what does South Bend mean to you?
Oh, I've been here for temporary move 24 years ago. I'm still here, and I'm about to park the car in front of a store I own here. Thanks.
My dad was a Studebaker Packard dealer in St. Charles, Illinois. This is the first 53 that came into his dealership.
And I wasn't really looking to buy a Studebaker, but a friend of mine had this car for a long time, never paid any attention to it, and then saw it one day. And I couldn't believe how beautifully finished it was. And then I really looked from the front. I just really loved the design. Then I looked inside, and it's got all these Art Deco touches and the gauges and the window cranks and door trim. And I love Art Deco things. And so that was it. Then I had to have it. Oh yeah, that's a round.
One of the fellows he sang with us years ago was Doc Nestor. He brought us around to his basement a few years ago, and he started singing the Studebaker chorus in 1928.
So what do you think of the day here today in South Bend? It's pretty special, eh?
Pretty special because my last name is Studebaker.
It all started for me as a 6-year-old kid in Tombstone, Arizona in 1945 when my father acquired the first Studebaker dealership issued immediately after the war. Well, my dad was very close with South Bend and made many trips here to actually pick up cars and drove them back, or family members to whom Dad would sell an automobile would come here to save the freight and drive them home. So we had a good relationship with South Bend. I never remembered coming here as a kid, but it was very close. And when the magnificent 53 Raymond Loewy came out that blew away the world and me, and Love Again especially, I kept saying, Dad, I'm a convertible guy. When are we getting a 1953 Raymond Loewy V8 Starliner hardtop into a real convertible?
Right, yeah.
And Dad said, Studebaker factory tells us it's coming. Stand by, my boy. But it never came. Cochise County, southern Arizona on the Mexican border, is the only county in the United States of America where Studebaker outsold Ford, Chevrolet, and Chrysler year in and year out. Anybody who was anybody had to drive Studebaker in southern Arizona.
The 53 came out of the proving ground here where we're sitting. It was found in 1969 when a bunch of local Michiana chapter members literally broke into the proving ground graveyard and discovered it. Later on, they got permission from Bendix, who had owned the proving ground here at the time, went in and got it along with the other plastic-bodied station wagon. The 53 I've got, it is an actual styling study prototype. Just kind of changed hands throughout the Midwest. It was in a corn crib in Illinois for a while, and then it ended up in Michigan where it sat in disrepair. I tracked it down and made the guy an offer he couldn't refuse, the chance to get it out of his yard so his wife would quit complaining at him to move it. So I've had it ever since. I've since found a donor car for the car to try to put it on a rolling chassis and try to make it into a running drivable car again. So maybe by one of the future international meets it'll be a running prototype again. So stay tuned.
I've had this car for 40 years. It is a 1955 Studebaker Ambulette, which was just an option package for the regular station wagon. Consisted pretty much of just a split back seat and a siren on top. It was sold originally as sort of a backup vehicle, although the South Bend Police Department did use them for patrol vehicles, that sort of thing. I've got the car when I was in high school, and I've had it ever since. It's been back to South Bend 4 or 5 times. It's been on this test track several times, and it's one of 2 surviving ambulettes in the world that we know of. One of them naturally turns up on eBay about 5 years ago, and a friend of mine in another club has that automobile. Everything has worked out very, very smoothly. The events were nicely laid out. They did all of the right things, particularly, getting us back out here on the test track, and the fairgrounds was an excellent location. The parade was an excellent idea. I can't say enough for the way these folks ran this show.
This is an early 1950 Regal Deluxe 4-door Champion, and it's been fully restored. It wasn't a true frame-off restoration, but the frame was in good shape, so we didn't have to do too much underneath. All new interior, new paint, bodywork repaired, engine and transmission rebuilt. And I probably, when the weather allows, I try to drive this one at least once a week if I can. I drive it to work. I drove it up here from Bloomington, Indiana. That's about 150 miles from here. And no problems whatsoever.
Welcome to the Proving Grounds. We are going to be going around here around 9:30. Just make sure, again, that you guys have your insurance forms with you. That is your admittance into the test track today. We have a few rules that we'll go over when we get a little closer to the time that we're going to go. And on behalf of the Michiana chapter, the Studebaker National Museum, thank you all for coming here to South Bend. We hope that you have a good day. Okay. Yeah, we're going to stop on the track on the in the center and take pictures there. Okay. If you guys will go to your cars, you guys in the back, especially if you're subject to vapor lock, do not start your car yet. We're going to start on the south side and proceed into the track.
Well, this is the famous Studebaker Proving Ground, and back behind us, if you were in an airplane, you can see Studebaker spelled out in the pine trees. Yeah, we're on the track now, one way.
This Proving Ground was built in the early 20s for Studebaker to use. I think it's just over 2 and so miles around each lap. This is where basically every Studebaker was tested and driven. The Proving Ground, I think, is roughly 400 acres, and they could simulate any driving condition that they wanted to out here, from wide open, full speed testing of cars to how much of a steep incline they could handle, off-road dust type condition testing, if they could seal water. Yeah, they could do it all.
Stock models, picked at random from the assembly lines, take a never-ending beating. They're water babies, too. Get a thorough soaking as they plunge headlong and forward through the water bath run. Can the car bite into dust and keep coming back for more? Yes, sir. Can they climb steep hills? You bet. Note how confidently they take the 30% grade. Experts in desert operations pounded these cars just as relentlessly as they would in the land of Wajid Mafi. They tried to break it down. They couldn't. They hunted out mechanical failure. It just wasn't there. See how surely, how confidently it floats over the deep ripples.
And for the early 20s, this was a multi-million-dollar facility. Today it is still very much so in use. It is owned by Bosch Corporation. They test a lot of different semis and large industrial vehicles out here.
Big news, big news, big news, Studebaker. Craftsmanship with a flair. The standout car in the low price field, the only car in the low price field that's really, really new. Studebaker, Studebaker, big news, Studebaker. Big news, Studebaker.
Seen the what, Ray?
Starliner.
The Starliner, yeah. At the museum.
Okay.
short months ago, you attended the introductory meeting of a remarkable automobile, the brilliant new Studebaker Champion. Only 4 months old, but what a car it has proved to be. So outstanding in style, performance, comfort, and economy. So acclaimed by those who purchased it that we at the factory have been besieged by requests from our dealers to make no change in the 1940 Champion.
Two-door Champions are a little bit harder to find than four-door models. That's because back then, I guess people like four doors, I don't know, but haven't seen many like it. For 1939 and 40, the Champion was their best-selling model with over 60,000 units being sold. This is an early model being completed in November of 1939, so it's, I think it's exceeded its warranty and it's still going. On the doors it says Eli Stokes, Master Chimney Sweep, and that was a chimney sweep company. They're still in business out of the Indianapolis area today. This was their promotional car, I guess. They used it in parades. I've had it now for about 5 years. I got my driver's license with this car. Just having a ball with it. This is another one. It's awaiting restoration. It's a work in progress, but for now I'm just having fun with it.
The battery died just before we got started on the track, and now the battery's dead again. I hope this jumper box will work.
I got a first place prize on this in my division, which I was really happy about. It's pretty unique getting on the track here with all these other guys and putting the pedal down on the gas pedal down, and just even though we only got up to about 50 miles an hour, it was pretty good, pretty good.
Okay, I was born in Sullivan, Indiana, and came to South Bend to be with my mother. Brought me back here. My father he was a surveyor, and he took a drafting course. He became a draftsman at Studebaker, and he helped design cars. He rode cars at the proving ground. He did a lot of drafting work, and I ended up, after I married my husband, I ended up in payroll department of Studebaker's. We had several old ones. My father had the bullet one, I called it. When it came out, he had the one with the front bullet. What did we call that?
The bullet nose.
That was it. And I had, my husband had an old one. We also had Lark. My father was in drafting. I had a friend who I was in payroll. My husband was head of purchasing at one time, the purchasing department, and that was very, very active. You can imagine purchasing had a lot of important people. And my first time to see the parade. My first one, and I'm 86. It was fabulous. You start at 8 in the morning, you work till 5 at night. You have an hour for lunch, you have a rest period, and you mingle with all of the other people. It was wonderful being a part of Studebaker's.